You're listening to the Tooth Sleuth Podcast, all about the business of dentistry, hosted by yours truly, Greg Essenmacher, a fixed full arch dental expert and founder of G&A Consult, speaking with industry leaders on the dental landscape from their perspective. At G&A, we specialize in transforming full arch dental practices, teaching, coaching, and training teams to deliver an exceptional patient experience, from that first call to delivering final smiles. Whether you're a practice owner, a DSO executive, or a regional leader looking to expand your full arch program, boost same-store sales, or unlock the true profitability of full arch cases, we've got you covered. Ready to see how full arch can elevate your practice? Visit the show page or book a discovery call today. Let's turn your potential into results. Welcome back, everyone. Tooth Sleuth Podcast host Greg Essenmacher here. So glad you joined me. If you don't know, like, click, subscribe, all the good things. My guest today is none other than a good friend of mine, the Elijah Desmond. And why do I emphasize the when I introduce you, Elijah Desmond? Please tell me. Please tell me, Elijah. Come on.
Well, there's only one Elijah Desmond, but if you want to be clear, you are a Michigan fan, and I am a Ohio State fan, but the proper way to say our trademark name is the Ohio State University. So thank you for adding that. What an honor.
And thus the way that I introduce the Elijah Desmond. So welcome to the program. Elijah, of course, if you don't know Elijah, you probably haven't been in the industry long enough or you haven't been around. He's the co-CEO of Dental Pitch Brokerage, a sell-side firm helping dental professionals maximize practice value, negotiating ideal exit terms, and a good friend of mine, and the founder of none other than Backstage Mastermind, an amazing group, which I'm sure we'll get into. There's so many things to get into. But Elijah, I want to go back to your roots, man. I want to go back to the Ohio State University, go blue. Because isn't that where you started in dental? Did it go before there? Because I think you studied and went to hygiene school there. Help me remember that part of the story. 54, grandpa here, 5-month-old grandson. I forget things at times. Fill me in.
Yeah, so I guess it starts from me being raised around a dental family. My uncle was a dentist. My aunt was a hygienist. My mom was an office manager, all in different offices. And so I was raised around dentistry, so it was just natural for me to go into hygiene school. I ended up tested out of high school at 15 years old and going to college while still being allowed to play sports. At the high school, I was college full-time, and I knew that I wanted to go to hygiene school because I loved dentistry, but I also knew I did not want to go an additional 3 or 4 years to dental school because I wanted to get involved with business, but I know I needed the dental background if I really wanted to take off.
Nice. I love that. And so interesting. I did not know that about you because I was taking college courses as well when I was in high school. They had an opportunity for me to do that. So there's another thing that we have in common, Go Blue.
Yes.
And so, I mean, just saying that, there may be a few throughout the program. And so then you go to hygiene school, but you knew you wanted to do business. And so then talk to me about what the journey looked like once you, once you got your certificate and did you do that in the Ohio area or
Yes.
did you move? I know you're down in the Florida area now. So talk to me a little bit about what that journey looked like and what you did in the dental industry.
Absolutely. First off, I was raised around my mentor as my dad, and he got Businessman of the Year from the NAACP. Just want to honor him first because he just recently passed. And I was used to this, like walking into my dad. He had a beauty salon. He had a lawn care service. He had a group home. A lot of businesses. But I was raised in a environment in which there was enough money. There wasn't a lack of money. He was by no means wealthy, but he was his own boss, and he always would pull cash out of his pocket when I wanted to go to the store or to go to the mall, and but I knew that I needed to work my butt off if I wanted to get what I wanted to, and ideally work for myself. So I graduated from Ohio State University and moved to Hawaii. That's where I started my first of many dental businesses, and that's really where I got my start. And I'm now sitting here approximately 20 businesses later that I created. And
so it's so interesting because I know for me, I had that entrepreneurial mindset, even though I didn't come from that type of a family. My father was a pressman for the Detroit News. He was a blue collar worker, provided there, we never went for anything, but there wasn't a whole lot of everything, right? Growing up. And so, I was 10 years old and had my first paper route, and built that from 67, you got a couple of blocks for the Detroit News, right? Went from 67 to 130 within like 6 months because, I'm a good salesman, right? Door-to-door salesman, used to collect door-to-door. So I get that. So what was the inspiration though for you to go from Ohio to Hawaii? What was the draw? Did you know someone out there? Was there just the attraction of, I don't know, what was out there other than hula skirts and, beaches and warmth? Because I know I escaped Detroit in 99 and moved to Phoenix because it's warm here and you don't have to shovel heat.
Yes. Well, you know what? I was raised on a big farm, and then I would go to the city with my dad every other weekend and a couple weeks in the summer. And to be honest with you, I didn't like Ohio. I loved the football team, but I didn't like Ohio. Now I love Ohio. My whole family is in Ohio, right? Besides my beautiful wife and 2 kids down here in Florida with me, but I didn't like Ohio, and I love the beach. I love to travel, so it was either me go to Switzerland or me move to Hawaii. And unfortunately, you had to have 1 year of hygiene prior to getting those jobs in Switzerland. So Hawaii was the natural choice. That's the reason why I moved there, and I go back still once a year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Back to Hawaii once a year? Is that what you're saying?
Been back to Hawaii once a year. No, I go to Hawaii once a year, and then Ohio, I go to probably like 4 times a year in most years.
And so you talk about 20 businesses later. That's an amazing number. So a lot of people like to talk about their success, right?
Yeah.
But I know that we learn more not through what I call our mistakes, but through what I like to call our learning opportunities, because we become successful through those opportunities where we learn what we could have done better, and then also sharing with others about what we've learned. And so talk to me about early on with maybe 1 or 2 of those businesses. What was one of those key learnings, either about yourself or about business, that you say, you know what, this was really key for me to learn early on? Because you're still a young guy, right? I didn't start my business till 4 years ago, right? At the ripe age of 50. And you pretty much right out of the gate said, I'm going to be a businessman. You saw your father, right? Big businessman of the year from the NAACP. That's truly amazing. Some of us, though, went the corporate route, climbing the corporate ladder, and then eventually got the courage to say, okay, I can hang my own shingle. So what were a few of those early learnings that you had that you could share with the listening audience?
Absolutely. I'll first start off by saying that I failed miserably on 8 businesses. So I created 8 different LLCs I failed on, and those were early on. The last business that I actually failed and I had to close the door on was in 2020 because of the pandemic. But talk about learning. Like, how did I scrape my knees?
I'm going to interrupt you right there. Elijah, people who know you, they don't see that. So thank you so much for sharing that out loud. Yeah. Because so many people see the Instagram life, they see you bigger than life, and they see you as, I'm sure, as just this massive success in everything that you touch. So what you just shared there is going to be so valuable, I'm sure, for many people to hear. So thank you. I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you there because that was such a poignant thing for you to share. Thank you for being vulnerable, but please continue.
Absolutely. So I lost on 8, and I lost a lot of money. I'll go ahead and be clear, though. There are so many things that were preventable that, like, now I know what I know, so I'm not doing that again. It's like touching the hot stove. You don't touch the hot stove twice, right? So if I were to be, like, really clear on what were some of the early failures that I had, I'll tell you the first one that still weighs heavy on me today is accepting money from investors, friends and family specifically, when you didn't completely vet out something that is a startup. Biggest mistake of my entire career. Going out and being in the startup space, you are taking a risk. And I accepted a lot of money from friends and family. And I did, and the business specifically was called Dental Hub 360, prior known as Carmi. But I spent I brought in a lot of money of people that believed in it. And it was really, really hard on me. Why? Number one, I took people's money in when I didn't have, like, full proof of concept. I just had an idea. I didn't have a successful rockin' business that was bringing in the hundreds of thousands or millions of profit, right? And because of that, I would not let that thing go. I tried and I tried and I pushed, and countless, years. This is 10 years really for the business before eventually I just had to say, like, I tried everything. But if I had invested my own money, I would have for sure stopped that bad boy, put a fork in it in year 2 or 3. Because I had other people that were counting on me, I was not going to die. And if I was going to give that business up, it would have had to been impossible. And it was impossible to grow. So that business, not to get into details of it, it's just, what did I learn from it? I do not like investments, personally, getting investments on early startups. So don't, when you're young in your business life, don't take on other people's money right away. Make sure you have a thriving business, and then take that money and then go to the next level, or take some chips off the table. So that was the first, I think, big lesson that I could give to everybody. And the second lesson that I have is finding the right business partner. I've had multiple businesses, and I've had some amazing business partners and some not so amazing business partners. And I don't think that you should do business by yourself. There was many business I did by myself. Telling my younger self this: get another partner. Find the right partner who you're in alignment with, and don't get the wrong partner. Some people are like, well, you can't just say, like, don't get the wrong partner. What's something that you wouldn't get them with? I'm going to tell you how to weed them out. Go and create your operating agreement really early about all of the things that it would take to have a successful business. Talk about the hard things. What if somebody doesn't perform for 6 months? What if somebody passes away or is in a coma? What if they're incarcerated? What if this person finds another beautiful business and spends all their time there? Is the business valuated and sold at that point? Is it sold for 50% of what its current value is? Who's paying for the valuation of that business? Can somebody else buy? I mean, there's so many different things. So doing an operating agreement, like, as soon as possible, to make sure that you guys are in complete alignment, and don't just do a basic one and we'll go fix it later. That's not going to happen. Do one that is asking the hard questions. To me, it's kind of like a prenuptial agreement. And this is, you got to talk about the hard things now. If you can make it through that and go to the other side, more than likely you will be successful. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't this, like, an easy thing. It's hard to find the right business partner. I can confidently say right now, with both of my businesses, I have the best business partners. But that didn't come without scars and without getting my finger burned multiple times. So and also, doing it by myself is hard. That sucks. I want people with skin in the game.
Yeah, I think those 2 points are really essential that you bring up, right? It's the money part, which is it really has that impassioned piece, right? Like you said, like letting it go, right? As soon as you said that, I started thinking of Elsa and Frozen, and I know you have a daughter, so I'm sure that came up. There's your earworm for the day. I won't sing it for you and for all my listening audience. The other piece, though, is this, you have an idea, you have a concept, if you haven't gotten proof of concept yet, but then, like what you're talking about, which is, imagine what it's like if it doesn't go in the partnership the way that you're hoping and thinking it will. Because everybody's all excited during that initial dating phase, right, of that partnership of it. But you have to figure what happens if it doesn't, right? If the shine and shimmer starts to wear off, when it starts to get difficult and somebody wants to start looking elsewhere, what are you going to do with that partnership? So I want to ask you this for those of my entrepreneurs that are listening. And, that's pretty much every single dentist that's out there that's not in a corporate DSO structure. What is it that you see other than strategy? Obviously, having a business partner where you can sit down with them and have other voices in, but they have that vested stake where you get to talk through strategy, strategic decisions that are made. I know for my business about 6 months ago, I had to make some strategic decisions, right? The big package and parsing off and letting people do a la carte and those types of things, which was a big risk for me, but it was my risk. And I made that decision and it's paying off tremendously. And I'm so grateful that I did. But having someone, there's so many times I come across this with my business coach of saying, man, like some strategic decisions, to have somebody to bounce that off of. And I have folks that in my business that are strategic partners that come in and that are a part of that. But having somebody that has that vested stake, like you're talking about, what else do you find in a partner in your businesses now that you say, other than just the strategy conversations, that are critically essential for the success of the business that you're finding?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll go straight to Dental Pitch Brokerage and talk a real life scenario, what's happening right
Please.
now, right? So I got into business with Matt Ornstein, okay? So that's my business partner. We basically own the business equally, and ultimately I brought what I bring to the table. What do I bring to the table? I know and I know 75% of the influencers and business owners and CEOs in this space. I know a lot of very high level people. But here's what I didn't have. I personally, 3 years ago, whenever Matt and I met, I didn't have a bunch of M&A experience, right? I sold a couple of my own personal businesses, a few by then. But I didn't have my own M&A experience, but I had the ability to go and source a ton of buyers and a ton of sellers. But what about the actual experience? Well, it's hard for me to learn on the way when it comes to that. When you're dealing with people's massive assets, when the people are selling their practice for 2 million, 5 million, 30, 40, 50 plus, you got to have a team. Well, he was able to bring all of that to the table, right? So overnight, when we decided to go into business, I had 2 full-time attorneys that both have their LLM. And then I had my M&A team that had 25 to 30 years of experience that came on board as the package. Oh, by the way, there's credibility as well that comes with that, because Matt has massive, large businesses, huge commercial real estate business, 9 different car washes. And oh, by the way, now he has 81 dental practices. And his team, that's now my team, went from 20 locations individually working with multiple brokers now to 81 locations. That's 51 different separate transactions, all working with brokers. And that team that did the transaction is coming from the M&A space. So what did it do for me? It gave me the ability to essentially overnight have an all-star team. That's what it did the most. And then there's also financial, right? Is the person that's coming to the table, are they able to financially come with money and support, right? Well, the answer was yes, as far as that is concerned too. So sometimes people are like, oh my God, I think exactly the same as you. And oh my God, we have the same traits. You and I are both good at the same thing. It would be amazing to do a business together. The answer is no. That probably is not the right person. You want to look for somebody that's your yang, right? You want to look for somebody that is completely different than you. Maybe you're a visionary, you need an operator. So looking for somebody that has a different set of skills than you are is exactly what you want to do when you're looking for the right partner. Not the same. Maybe the same vision. Maybe you guys share the same core values, but entirely different skill sets is what you want to look for when finding a partner.
Well, and it's amazing that you used the word skill set. It was the note that I wrote down, because what you've brought in is somebody who has the financial backing, the structure, the experience in that M&A side, and your skill set, which most people know, which I know, it's the connections and it's the relationship side. And
yes.
Marrying those two, it's just like in any relationship, whether it's in business, in life, your life partner, your spouse, whatever it is, even in friendships, right? If you have 2 type A personalities in a room, or, pick 30, right, at any of the retreats for Backstage Mastermind, you put them in a room for a period of time, and, it's like putting, a mongoose, what is it, the mongoose and they can't keep them in the same spot for very long. But when you have the complementary personalities, complementary skill sets,
yes.
Man, it's like a rocket ship. It's not additive, it is exponential. And that's what's critically important. I love to hear that. So tell me a little bit more about Dental Pitch Brokerage. So why is it that you're different from, and I could name off 3 or 4 or 7 or 10 others, especially in the consolidation that's happening in the space. And it's, I don't want to get into the technicalities, right? I'm going to ask you to not do that, right? But because each brokerage, each firm, each group has its own essence. They have their own personality, if you will. So what makes y'all different from anyone else that's out there doing a similar, I'll say similar in structure, if you will, thing, right? Practice will come to you. They want to transition out of ownership for X, Y, or Z reasons. Of course, they want to get the maximum value. They want to have, the least amount of stress and headache in the process. They want to get the most and give the least. Let's just call it that. What's different about Dental Pitch Brokerage?
Yep, I'm going to start with our team. Our team is different. And what does that mean? On our actual team, we actually have two dental professionals and clinicians. So we understand the science and we understand teeth. Right, and we know it's not just about a transition. There's actually teeth involved. There's humans involved. There's patients involved. First and foremost, so I'll lead with that. The second thing is that we have people on our team that are real estate experts and that have been in the real estate space for a long time. Okay. Next piece is we have people that have been in the M&A space on our team for a long time, and also specifically within dentistry. And the last thing is for me. I was a consultant. I am no longer a consultant, but I was actually a dental consultant from 2012 till 2019. And during that time, I was teaching practices to grow. And the fact that we have all of those parts makes us completely different than any brokerage firm that's out there. We're extremely versatile. Even though that we're young, I would say we're like the NBA All-Star team because we have all of these extremely high-level people in every category. So that's what makes us first and foremost different than the rest. The second thing is how we came into the market, which is actually really fun, is we have an event that's like Shark Tank. And it's not for everybody, so all of our sellers don't go through Shark Tank event that's like Shark Tank. But essentially, we have 10 different buyers that come to this actual event, and the next one we have is in Las Vegas, by the way, which I'm so excited about. So we have 10 actual buyers, and then the sellers, we will hand select a few of the right sellers, we'll say 5 of them, to go in the room one at a time, come to the front of the room with myself or my business partner, and essentially pitch their practice. So I ask them questions about their practice. So it's not like they have to be a speaker. But what it does is it allows the buyers or the sellers to meet many different buyers right away, like out of the gate. Not meet them 50% into the time, but meet them way early in the process. And so they get one-on-one meetings with the people that are going to buy their practice, and then it's a bidding war. And oftentimes we're not bidding on the dollars, we're actually bidding on the terms of the agreement, which oftentimes is more important than the dollars themselves. So we're putting everybody in the same room, we're bidding it up, and by the way, nobody's given an offer that day. Okay, this is a chance to meet and greet and ask the questions and understand personalities. But that made us so far different. That made us the unicorn in this space, which is why we get over 50 opportunities every single month to represent these practices. And unfortunately, we can only take about 10% of them. The rest of them are not ready they're not ready to sell for another 18, 24 months, maybe longer. Maybe their EBITDA margin is too low. Maybe they're too small. And so we basically, when we launched that unique opportunity for the industry as far as like that setting, it has been absolutely amazing. The last thing I'll say is this. We are very buyer friendly. So what does that mean? It's not bad for the seller. It's just we look really good to all the buyers. Why? We're not taking any money from the buyers. There are many brokers that will take from both sides, even if they're a sell-side broker. They'll take 1% to 5% on the buy side. We won't take that. And it allows them to offer the most amount to the seller. That's the first thing about the buyer. Second thing about the buyer is that all buyers are completing something that's called a quality of earnings on the office they're buying. Brokers is not normal at all to do a QOV, a quality of earnings. It's for the seller side. Most brokers don't make the seller do that. We will not take a seller unless they're willing to do that forensic accounting. And look, it's going to cost them $3,500 to $5,000 from an outside third party to get the QOV done. But that third party QOV, when it's brought to the buyer, they know that we're serious, our numbers are all the way accurate, and it's not a pie in the sky number, and they're going to be able to essentially offer something that is very realistic, that is that is reasonable, because we know the forensic accounting essentially of everything, and brokers aren't doing that. They're not making their sellers get it. They're just doing a valuation. Oftentimes it could be inflated or it could be under, because it's the regular valuation. We're doing forensic accounting, and it completely sets us apart, and the buyers love that.
Well, I can imagine so, right? Because it's such a process, and for them to have the confidence of what they're actually going to be seeing once they've started the process and invested their time, talent, and treasure to get to the point where they do make an offer, it's a beautiful thing. And what you're describing in my terms, right? The early access is what you talk about. In my world, we talk about that as differentiation with the clients that we work with in Full Arch. Is how do you differentiate in the marketplace? How are you different from everybody else that's out there? And so it was very clear how you described that, and that was really helpful. Well, Elijah, this is the part of the program. All of my guests play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On? It's 3 rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind, are you ready to play?
I am not ready to play yet. I got one. I got one small thing, because I know the audience. Please. I'd like to fit it. Does anybody ever say no?
Fit it in.
Okay.
No, I did. I had one say. One had said no, but I'll do it anyway. So you don't have a choice. I just won't air it if you won't play by my rules. That's the good thing about being the host.
That is so funny. Well, first off, I love games. So anything you can do games around, I'm in. But I just want to. I know that a lot of your audience is seeing implant practices, their full arch practices, etc. And yep. I am seeing a lot in the implant space, and I would love to just add like 3 or 4 big tips from what I'm seeing to your audience, if that's okay.
Sure, please.
That I've seen, because everybody grows this most people grow this massive empire in the implant world. And they grow it, and the money is good while you're in it, right? You can't argue with implants. They're one of the most profitable things you can do in dentistry, period. However, it comes time to sell the practice. Here are some tips that I want to give that are good takeaways. If you have an implant practice or a full arch practice and you want to prepare yourself for the sale, what do you do? Number one, you have over 5 operatories, 5 or more operatories in your practice. That's the first thing. Buyers are really not, big buyers are not interested in practices that are 3 ops, 4 ops. This is not something they're interested in. So 5 ops or more, first thing. Second thing, I understand that hygiene is not that important, okay? In a full arch practice, it's not super important. There's not where the money is necessarily coming in. But hear me out when I say this. If you have a solid hygiene program that is built within, okay, in the full arch practice or the implant practice, you will go from having a huge marketplace of all these buyers. You might have, if you didn't do hygiene, you might have 10, max 15 buyers. You open it up, you've got 100 plus buyers if you add hygiene. So adding hygiene is extremely important when it comes to the sale. I understand when you're getting the money, maybe it's not a big deal. But if you add hygiene...
No, but it needs to be. It's such a huge point. Everybody needs to hear that one, right? Implant maintenance and hybrid maintenance, it's got to be a part. So please continue, but 1,000%.
Absolutely. And so the next piece is making it so where you're not one point of failure. So if you're this super amazing rock star GP, oral surgeon, implant provider, and you're the only one doing all of that work, okay? Let's just say you're producing, 1.5 million of EBITDA, and I've seen 3 million of EBITDA. This is real, okay? From one producer, okay? Now, what happens if you get hit by a bus? That person who invested millions of dollars, that group that invested millions of dollars on your practice, now what are they going to do? They're out of luck. They're completely out of luck because you got in a car accident. So diversification and adding associates is extremely important when it comes to selling your practice. Now, I will also say this, and it is the current market right now. When you go to sell, plan on selling 51% to max 70%. Okay? Most of the buyers, specifically implant focus, are going to want to have you roll money into the holding company or they're going to have you keep skin in the game and keep, let's just say, 30-40% of it. They're not going to pay you upfront 100%. So make sure to set your expectations right when it comes to that. Also, if you are a provider and you're working, plan on staying in that practice for a minimum of 3 years. Okay, minimum of 3 years, and when you sell, you're now going to get probably 30 to 35%. Of what you're producing as your check that you still got coming on top of your big payday. And if you could follow those things, you open up your opportunities to sell from 10 buyers, 15 buyers to 100 plus buyers. It is the biggest advice, and I hope you're listening because hope the people that are listening, because I'm literally going through this on a day-to-day basis. We represent multiple implant practices and high-end practices, and that's what's going on. These are the things that I'm seeing, and if I can prepare you for that, then I've done my job. Now I'm ready for the game.
No, I have to double click on that because it is so true that clients that we work with and how they're trying to scale and grow and being additive, that single source of failure is so prevalent. And the other piece of being realistic about what it looks like on that payday, right? On that cash out of staying in the business and being able to continue to earn and build and grow in that business. Because what we saw in 2021, 2022, I mean, that was craziness of what the multiples were. And the PE money saw what happened, right? It just was not sustainable. They did not make their money back, and they're still clawing and stretching back, and they got their butts handed to them. And the real reality behind it is there has to be value in order to be evaluated and in order to give valuation. And that's how you're actually going to, all this that you built, right? With all of these marketing companies out there that love to say, yeah, we'll give you 10x, yeah, 10x of what your return on investment is. But is it built on a house of cards, or are you actually building sustainable, growable processes and systems that we help at G&A? And then are you future planning? That's the first question that we ask. What are your plans? Where do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now before we even start working with clients, and especially in the full arch lane? So 1,000% everything that you just said. Yeah, please.
I'm going to say this, and this is, a little plug for you, and this is just honest, like what it is. Do not think about selling your practice today. Like if you're thinking about selling right now, it's probably too late. You could have got way more. Think about what's going to happen in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. But you got to plan right now. You got to pick up the phone and have a call with somebody like myself or have a call with somebody like Greg. Think about it now. Do not wait. You always want to be sell ready. Now, the last thing I'm going to input before we play this game is this. A company like yours with G&A, okay, that is focused on full arch, focused on implant practices, it is by far the best investment that you could ever invest in. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. Because every $1 that Greg brings you is like $6, $7, potentially $8 that you're going to get during a sale. Here's another big picture. Greg, your services, they're an add back. And for those of you who don't know what add backs are, when you have your EBITDA, okay, your net profit or your EBITDA, what happens is that you have something called adjusted EBITDA. Adjusted EBITDA are one-time expenses, okay? So essentially, if you buy a cone beam, that's a one-time expense. If you go on a big CE trip, that's a one-time expense. If you pay a consultant, that is a one-time expense, an add back. So you're going to be able to basically take the money that you invested in a company like yours, and you're going to get all of that back plus times 6, times 7, times 8. And it's super important. Don't try to do it yourself. Hire the expert.
Yeah, and we have a couple of clients right now that literally we had that conversation. They brought the conversation forward and it came up, and it's why they're making the investment, because they started the conversation about selling a year, 18 months ago, and made the decision to hold off because they did go to quality of earnings, and they went through the process, held off, have brought us in, and we're giving them the returns they're looking for because we're not a barnacle on the ship. It's a 6 to 12 month deal that they work with us, add more, scale, then they turn around and sell, and they get an even higher number. So it's so very true. All right, you ready to play this game, bud?
I'm ready.
Don't
for
worry,
the game.
it's not like Scarlet and Gray versus Maize and Blue. This is still this.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Question number 1: what's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
Oh my goodness. Listen, probably a corpse. I was in forensic dentistry at Ohio State. I worked in the coroner's office for 6 months before I graduated. And I literally had to look in their mouth, and it was the most raunchy smell ever. And I looked at a lot of corpses. It was actually, you get almost immune to it. Like, it's not a big deal walking into the room. But whenever it's time to open up that mouth, you got to get real close in there. That's the nastiest smell ever. And that's real life, too. 2009, baby, Ohio State University. I'll never forget. Dr. Jan Gorniak, the corner.
That smell. So here's one for you. 18 years ago when I started in dental, my very first assignment on the road, right? Road warrior that I am, sends me to a course, and it's a cadaver course. A cadaver course. Week 3. I didn't know all the tips and tricks. You put the Vicks in the nose, you do the whole thing, right? I didn't know any of that. Here I am just like, and I'm like trying not to stare at like the cadaver. Such fond memories of that very first course 3 weeks into dental. It didn't scare me away, though. Still here. Okay. Love it. Love it. Question number 2. If you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
Oh, my goodness. You caught me when I'm about to get my full mouth veneers. You caught me like January 26th. I mean, I'm in temps now. So what would I change? I mean, listen, I was raised with all my friends asking me if my favorite clothing line was Gap or like don't fall into the Gap. And so I had this serious diastema until I was in hygiene school and they fixed it. The thing is that I had composites that brought the diastema together. I didn't have ortho. And then I started my ortho journey a very long time ago. I just ended it. I have an amazing orthodontist and GP combo, Dr. Gervais and Dr. Lou Shimura. And anyhow, I'm now to the final stages. My occlusion is perfect, and now I'm going and I'm getting veneers, baby. That's what I'm doing.
Love it. And, everybody gets that question, so it's not like that was specific to you. But I like, as I was coming up on that question, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. He's on his journey already, so it's not just one thing. It's his smile.
Yes.
And, so you've got that Madonna, Michael Strahan thing you had going on, but it's beautiful on you anyway. It's all good. It's all good.
Thank you.
Question number 3, last and final. If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product, and no, you can't choose your own, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, man. The first thing that pops up to my mind is they have this wireless sensor. I forget what it's called, but it's a wireless Bluetooth sensor. And it's just so genius to like get rid of the cord. And I'm a millennial. I'm 38 years old. I'm this super techie. And I think that was the best invention to date so far. Now, I'm not practicing anymore, but I know this. I could not stand taking x-rays. Whew! That was the worst. So anything to make that experience better that dealt with tech and good quality, I would go from that. And so yeah, that was the invention I would love to have invented that I did.
Love it. Well, Elijah, in the last few minutes, I want to respect your time, my listening audience's time. Is there anything I haven't asked you or you haven't been able to share on the podcast today?
I think there's just one thing. I think people's why is almost more important than their business story, and I can quickly tell everybody what my why is. I was gifted with the ability to save people's lives, and I'm not a heart surgeon. I'm not a doctor. In fact, I'm a hygienist-turned-broker. But the biggest thing in my life is saving kids' lives. I got addicted to that at a young age, and I am a motivational speaker. I speak all over the world for kids, and I save kids' lives from the stage. There's no better feeling than getting off the stage and having this long line, and it's not the autographs or the selfies. It's the kid that gives you the biggest hug, and they don't let go, and they're bawling their eyes out on your shoulder, and they look at you and they just say, that was me. Thank you. I'm not going to commit suicide today because of the things that you said from the stage. And so I volunteer for a nonprofit called Beyond the Game and do motivational concerts all over the world for kids. And I think that is next to my family, that is the most important thing in my world is the kids. So that's it.
I think giving back is, it's so noble and it's so important, especially as we continue to have more success in business, to be able to give back from what we've been so blessed with and work very hard for sure. And thank you for sharing that and closing on that. My guest today on the Tooth Sleuth Podcast has been none other than the Elijah Desmond, co-CEO of Dental Pitch Brokerage. And Elijah, how can they get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more?
Absolutely. So if you're a practice that just wants to know about what would your practice be worth, conversations are free. Number one, you can type me into Google and my info will pop up, but go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or you can personally email me at elijah@dentalpitchbrokerage.com, or you can go to the website and you can download a lot of free resources there. And yeah, I'd love to chat with you, and conversations are free.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Elijah. It's truly been my pleasure.
Thank you. We'll see everybody soon. Bye-bye.
If you need help with converting lead calls into consultations, closing consults into more full arch cases, or creating a more strategic marketing message and branding for your practice or group, follow me for more tips or reach out to G&A Consult for a discovery call today.